Okay, here we are. We're in our airplane. We're ready to go, and we're just going to keep it casual for now. Just we'll get into the depth of how to run through the start procedure, which is a whole bunch of button pushing and making sure everything is working correctly and the airplane is ready and safe for flight. We'll get to that maybe in the next lesson, maybe a little after, but it doesn't really matter until you can actually fly the airplane. So in case you're wondering what the airplane looks like or how to see outside of the airplane, the F2 key on your keyboard will take you to this view. And here's our C-101 in the U.S. Air Force markings all ready to go. We can see things. I'll put the flaps down. And that would be takeoff flaps right there, I believe. And whoops, up they go. So that's probably landing flaps. And there's takeoff flaps. And there's flaps up. Now to do that in the airplane, I have a switch. I have it mapped to a switch on my joystick just to make it easier for me. But you would do it right here. You would take that back. And we can go back outside with our F2 button. And there they are, takeoff flaps. I can also turn on the speed brake. There's the speed brake. It's not super effective, but if you need something to help you get the airplane slowed down, there it is. I'm pressing the F1 key to get back in the airplane. I probably should have told you that sooner. The speed brake, I think, is turned on right here if you don't have a switch mapped to it, which, you know, is kind of a royal pain. You're trying to fly the airplane. If you need to speed brake, you're in something of a situation. Now you're looking down here and fiddling around with that. So I strongly suggest getting a good flight stick and throttle quadrant that you can something with a lot of buttons on it, so you can map the buttons to what you need them to do. The more of that you can do, the better. So here we are. We're in the front seat. We're ready to go. I've got a little zoom set up on my throttle, so I can kind of zoom where I want to be. This would probably be the most realistic view if you're really in an airplane. But because of the narrowness of our field of vision, it's really quite a chore to have it that close. It's just hard to fly. So I'm going to move it back to something a little more comfortable where I have some additional peripheral vision. Now this is a 1970s era airplane, so everything is mechanical, which isn't, well, not entirely. I mean, there's a flight director and a flight something of an autopilot here, and by a mechanical I mean it's not solid state. There's not a bunch of circuit boards behind that. There's probably no transistors at all. Well, maybe a few, 1975, but it would be a gigantic box of electronics for something that these days would fit in your iPhone. Now the reason I bring all this up, this is a directional gyro. It knows nothing on its own. It does not know north from south, from east from west. It knows absolutely nothing on its own. So we have to teach it that, and we'll do that with the magnetic compass. So this is our actual heading right now. That's about 250 degrees, 270 degrees is west. I should probably go through that in case you're brand new to this. Headings are in degrees of the compass. 360 degrees makes a full circle. So we start at north, and north is ambiguous. It can be 0 degrees or it can be 360 degrees. They're both identical. But as you move up here, that 3, you have to multiply everything by 10. So that 3 is 30 degrees, and that's northeast. So 45 degrees northeast would be right around here at 44.5 or 45. That would be northeast. East is 90. South is 180, west is 270, and we are set up, we're currently facing 250, which is about right, so it's pretty close to started out for you. It did that as part of its automated engine start. Had we started the engine ourselves, we would have had to do that. And what you do is you look for these there's kind of a little dot right there and a little plus right there, and you can only see right between the middle of them. That means it's set correctly. If you saw just the plus sign, you would go to this switch and move that up to plus. And you'd have to keep an eye on it because it stays up there, and this thing will just keep going. But let's go ahead and do that. Let's put that up in plus, and now you're going to see this starting to creep, and see that dot coming in as we creep more and more towards the south. That dot, so now we got to stop that. If you forget to do that, it's just going to keep going. So now it's a dot. We want to go down here to the dot, and it's going to go the other direction. And now you keep an eye on it. You can't just look away, because when it gets where you want it to be, right there, one more click will stop it. So we're all set on that. We have a runway basically right in front of us. We're not going to call the control tower or anything like that during this. We'll fiddle with that stuff later. So really, we're just going to go fly now. So if you've mapped everything correctly, you should be able to see your rudder pedals move. You should be able to see the brakes move when you press the brake pedals, if you have that. Sometimes planes like this require a separate switch for the brakes. right, left, up, down. You should be able to see that happening out there. That's right. I'm sorry, that's right, and that's left. So they go up and down like that. And we can jump outside the airplane. That's up, that's down, and then this is rudder left, rudder right. And you see the nose wheel moving as well. That's how we're going to steer on the ground. We're going to move that wheel. So let's just give it a little bit of throttle, and I'm just going to creep it up a little bit. Now our power gauge is this. Actually, you can use N1 or N2 as the power gauge. The difference being, this is somewhat technical, but the engine here, it's kind of like the same type of engine you would see on an airliner. It's a big, huge, round thing. It's a turbo fan. So N1 is the outside part of that, the fan part of it, and internal to that's the actual jet turbines which are creating the power and actually driving this fan. It turns twice as fast. So it's at 60%, so just sitting at idle. This is a good power measure. This is a good power measure. Doesn't matter which one. The entire point being, we're just going to creep this up a little bit. This is the turbine temperature, internal temperature of the engine. You don't want that to get above that red line. So see, as we're moving that forward, eventually the plane's going to start to creep forward. Or not. There it goes. And then we can, once we get that rolling going, we can pull that throttle back. We don't want to go too fast on the ground. So we're going to go just right out here, and I'm using the right rudder to make that turn. And I believe this is one that has a central brake lever. I have it mapped on my joystick. So to use the brakes, I have a little switch that I pull, plane stops. So your toe brakes, the way you work that is you have to use the switch to turn on the brakes and then the direction you want to go. And it's an absolute nightmare because I don't have the brake switch set to something that's analog. It's just digital, so it's all the way on, all the way off. So you really have to steer with the nose wheel and not try to steer with differential braking, which means, let me stop and explain differential braking. Most modern airplanes have a brake pedal on each rudder pedal. So I'm going to activate the left brake pedal. See how that moves? And this is on the right. What that would do is apply the brakes only to that wheel. If you want to apply both, you can. I have both on right now. But if you just want to apply one, you would just use the top of the right rudder pedal, and that would put the brakes on that right wheel, and that would cause the airplane to turn to the right. And that's a more predictable way to do the nose wheel steering, because the nose wheel makes a huge turn. And sometimes when you're going fast, you just want to drift, you just want to touch a little bit on that brake and encourage it back to some direction, rather than try to use that nose wheel, which at speed is going to be far too much, and you're going to end up zigzagging down the runway. You'll see what I mean someday, I'm sure. So here comes the runway. I believe this is still the taxiway. Yeah, this is still taxiway. So we're going to turn to the right because we want to use the full length of the runway, and because I don't want to go across the grass to get to it. So I'm going to apply some right nose wheel. Now we're going to cruise on out here. We don't have far to go. That's why we put the airplane in GO1, or Golf 01 as the military would say, or pilots for that matter. So we're going to come on out here. And hopefully you figured out some way of mapping your brakes. It can be a button if you wanted to, or a space bar, because it's going to apply them both the same, and that's what we really want. As we make this turn, normally what we would do is we would stop here. This is what's called the hold short line. There we go. So we're not allowed to cross that until we've got clearance to take off, so I'm going to put on the brakes. Now this is normally where we would do our last minute checks. We would make sure that we have our flaps in takeoff position, and that can be determined right there. That T off means takeoff. Our speed brake is in, so that's important. The rest of the stuff's really not all that important right now. There'll be a few more things at some point, but for now that's enough to get us in the air. I want to make sure we have the canopy closed, but that was part of the automatic start, was to close the canopy, so we're all good there. So let's pretend we've contacted the tower. He's given us clearance to take off. So let's give a little bit of throttle. Remember, it took us about 70 on the N2 to get us rolling. There it goes. And we'll throttle back. There's no sense getting too fast here. We're going to have to make a 90-degree turn. And what we're going to want to do is make sure we'll make a 90-degree turn up here to the left to get lined up on the runway, and then we want to let it roll forward a few feet to make sure we're pointed straight down the runway, and we're not going to need a whole lot of adjustment to the nose wheel steering as we're blazing down the runway. So you want to get out here to about the middle of it, and you're starting to see where that track IR is handy. And I'm going to go ahead, line up a little bit. Oop, I got a little pause in my machine there. Okay, so I want that to be rolling pretty much straight down the runway. About like that. We're going to brake on again, and we're going to run the engine up. full power. And that's going to be about 99, we call it about 99% on the N2, which is, you know, this little guy down here. I'm holding the brakes, holding the brakes. And I'm just easing that throttle up, let it spool up. They take a little while to spool up. That's close. So we're going to drop the brakes, and here we go. Now here's where you want to be, if you have to make corrections on the nose wheel, very, very gentle, just the pressure. Now we're watching the airspeed. Right now we're at 50 knots, which is right here. We want about 100. I'm going to ease the stick back just a bit at 100, and that's coming up right about now. So here's the stick coming back. These pauses are coming from the fact that I'm recording this. Now just kind of hold this angle, and now would be a very good time to put up your landing gear. You see that handle going up, that's the landing gear going up, and soon thereafter the flaps. We don't want to overspeed the flaps, so there's the flaps going up. So we should have up on the flaps, in on the air brake, and your landing gear is up. Three ups. Okay, I'm losing control here. Alright, so here we are flying. Now, if I'm still holding back pressure, and I'm going to explain to you what elevator trim does. I'm holding back pressure to keep this climb. If I let go of the stick right now, that nose starts to come down. So that means it needs elevator trim, and I have that mapped to a switch on my joystick. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a little elevator trim. I'm just going to let the nose keep coming down like it was, and I'm going to respond only by giving it elevator trim. And you'll see how this starts to bring the nose up. Now you can tell if we're climbing or not by this indicator right here. This is your vertical speed indicator, and what it's telling me is we are climbing at just about 4,000 feet per minute, which is a whole lot. And you can see, commensurate to that, our airspeed coming down. So there's a couple things we want to do right now. We want to pull the throttle back a little bit. We don't want to run around at full power, burns a lot of gas, etc., etc. Try to stay, between 150 and 200 knots. So we're not going too fast. And I'm going to manage the trim so that we've just got a gentle climb, because we're going to go up to maybe about 5,000 feet. And just kind of manage the throttle to manage your airspeed and altitude. So right now we're climbing at 2,000 foot per minute again, which is fine. 175 knots on the airspeed, which is also fine. We're not overly particular about it all right now. Let's make our first turn. I'm going to go ahead and turn. Which way is the interesting way? There's some river and such this way, so we're going to gently start to stick to the right. I'm not going to pull back on the stick as I do this, so I put it in a bank. Now watch what happens to the vertical speed. See that? I've taken a lot of lift out of that wing to help it encourage the airplane to turn. There's less wing lifting now. So you have to kind of gently pull back on the stick when you turn to keep that altitude. So now I'm gently pulling back on the stick to get that vertical speed back to 0. We're picking up quite a bit of speed, so I'm going to pull the throttle back a little bit more. We're not in any hurry. There we go. So we'll just fly on up this river. So I'll go ahead and continue this turn. And generally fly north. And you can see north is right here, 360 degrees. Yeah, this is close enough. That's going to take us up to Hoover Dam, I believe, if we fly it long enough. Alright, so straight and level. 250 knots, let's keep it there. I'm going to pull the throttle back some more. And you'll be surprised at how little throttle it takes to keep it flying. Now that beeping is because I have the throttle back and the landing gear up. That's letting me know, hey, careful, you may stall the airplane. By stall, I don't mean the engine. When pilots talk about stalling, it's an aerodynamic stall. And what that means is there's not enough air across the wing. The air across the wing's not moving fast enough anymore to generate the lift it needs to keep flying. So the airplane is going to stop flying. And the response to that is a lot of noise. There'll be a horn. At some point it'll make a rattling sound as it shakes your rudder pedals, and then the nose will drop precipitously, probably. And the response to it is get the nose back down and let it pick up some airspeed. So we could actually go into a stall. I could pull the throttles back to idle. Become irritated by that caution horn. So there's a button to turn it off, but I don't remember where it is. I don't like to just randomly push buttons. So we'll just endure it for a minute. Stall speed is, clear up here around 100 knots or so, below 100 knots. So that warning horn is kind of, it's a very, very early warning horn. So let's go ahead and put the speed brakes out. Maybe that'll slow us down a little bit. And the way you can tell the speed brake is out is right there. It says out. And you can see the airspeed dropping much more quickly. That's going to drop a lot more quickly now that I've got that thing out. So we're just holding altitude as it slows down. I'm holding more and more backstick as it slows down. And controls are starting to get a little mushy because there's not as much air flowing across them. There's 100 knots, so we can expect to stall pretty. There's the pedal shaking. See that? That's to really wake you up because you've ignored it this long. Now we're in a 2,000 foot per minute descent. I've got full stick back. That's all it's going to do. It's just going to mush along until we hit the ground. So let's get the throttle back in. And see, it recovers quite. No, let the nose down. Let it pick up a little airspeed. It recovers quite easily. All right. So this is just general flying around. You can make some turns, do whatever you want to do. Just fly around in circles, do some left turns. Whoops. See, now this, when I'm in a turn, remember I told you you have less lift in the turn. So that's saying, hey, you don't have as much lift. You can't go quite as slow before I warn you. See, it just keeps warning me about the stall. So I'm going to generate some more power. Pardon me. There's the airport. We can go down and make a low pass across the airport if you want to. So let's go full throttle. Let's really buzz let's put the speed brakes back in, and let's buzz the tower. Then none of that negative Ghost Rider crap. We can buzz anything we want. The pattern is never full in your little world. So we're going to come zooming down here, and we've really picked up speed. We're almost to 300 knots. What we can't do is go over 450 knots. That'll rip the wings off. So do keep an eye on that. Oh, there is no control tower. What a cheesy little airport. Look at that. Very barren. Not a very interesting airport at all. And we can do a roll. Yay. Yeah, just like that. Alright, let's pull the throttle back and let's get speed brakes out. And let's see if we can land it. Now landing, do not be upset if you crash on the landing. I will probably crash on this landing. This is a trainer. It's supposed to be easy to land, but it's I do find that I have trouble with it now and then. But we'll see how it goes. So we want to get slowed down right around that yellow line we just went past. Just under 200 means we can put the landing gear down, and that'll help us slow down. And of course it'll it'll keep us from slowing down too quickly when we get on the runway. So once that landing gear is fully down, there's the 3 green. That shuts that guy up, which is always pleasant. Now we're down below 150. We're down to about 130 knots. We can go ahead and get some flaps down. So flaps the first. There's takeoff flaps. And one more notch should give us landing flaps. Okay, there's our flaps down. And that's going to reduce our stall speed, and it's just going to make it easier to fly. Now we're at 110 knots. That's not a bad place to be. Let's get the speed brake back in. We don't need it because now we have all kinds of things hanging outside. We got the flaps down, we got landing gear down, all kinds of things to slow us down. So it's actually going to need quite a bit of up trim. It's going to want to start diving on you. And let's just keep it in the middle, somewhere between 100 and 150. We want to be about 100 as we're coming down final. There's your runway over there. We're what's called on left downwind right now. The assumption being that you land and take off into the wind because it reduces how much ground speed you'll need on the runway. So we're going downwind now. We're going to make a left turn to get back to the airport, so we are on left downwind. That turn we're going to make is a 90-degree turn, and it's turning onto what's called left base. And that will give us a nice look at the runway. It'll set us up for landing, and then we will turn final from there. Final is obviously, well, maybe not honestly. Final is when you're lined up to land on the runway. So here we are left downwind. We're pretty far out. We were coming quite fast across the airport, so we got pretty far out. But you want to extend out here so you're going to have time to descend once you get on final, and you'll descend a little bit on base. This is all kind of sinking into the landing. So let's say roughly here, excuse me, we want to make our turn on the left base. And we're at 110 knots, which is still good airspeed. We are descending. We're about 500 foot per minute or so, so we are coming down. And that's what you want. You want to be descending into the airport. So there it is out there at about 90-degree angle. We're going to roll level again. Now we're on left base, and our next turn will be final to land. So we're watching our altitude. It was about 700 when we took off. That's above sea level, and so we're at 2,200 above sea level. So about 1,500 above ground level, which is about right. We want to be about 900 as we turn final, so we're going to let it keep coming down. I'm going to pull a little power off, and this is going to take a long time to learn. There's no way around it. This is the hardest part of it. So you're just going to have to practice to learn this. It can be time expensive if you crash every time, then you have to take off every time. So you can set yourself up a mission where instead of being parked on the ramp, you can be in air and point yourself at the runway, put yourself at about 1,000 feet, And while you still need to restart the mission after each crash, at least you don't have to do the whole engine start and take off thing. So it looks like we're getting about ready here. We're going to make a gentle turn to final. Our altitude is about 16 minus 7 is about 900. That's where we want to be. And we're going to throttle back a little bit more. We're at 130, or I'm sorry, 125. We want to be at about 100 knots down final. But you're going to pick up a lot of descent. Remember when we were at 100 knots before, we were dropping like a brick. So you have to be ready on the power. It's counterintuitive. As you slow down the land, sometimes you're going to have to add more power. There we are. We want to get lined up on that. Just line up on it. There we go. And want to watch the power. We don't want to go too fast. And we don't want to be climbing, but we don't want to be dropping like a brick either. It's a real balancing act here. So we're at about 600 foot per minute descent at 110 knots. We want to capture that. We don't want to go down any faster. It looks like we're going to hit the runway just right. We don't want to get too slow, because that's what usually happens to me, is I let it get too slow on final and I drop it in like a brick. So what I'm at, 61.3, no, I'm sorry, 83.7 on N2 is a good power setting, looks like. Now we're looking okay, we're looking okay. Now when we get down here to the runway, just as I come across the numbers, I'm going to pull the power to idle, like that. Can't see the numbers because they're buried in skids. Now I'm going to ease the nose up and just kind of try to just gently let it touch down. There we go. That was perfect. It stalled just as we were landing, the aerodynamic stall, and there's the nose wheel down. Now this is where you have to remember to use the brake switch, not the brake pedals, if you have any experience at all with the brake pedals. And I'm just tapping at it. I'm not locking them up. I'm just kind of tapping at it. And here comes our taxiway. So we're slow enough now that we can turn. I'm going to go ahead and bring the flaps back up. Don't need them. And we'll make our turn into the parking here. Now the spot we were parked is way up there. Let's just park down here somewhere. We don't want to taxi all the way back. It takes a lot of time. No point in it. So let's creep on back in here. And because we own the airport, we can park anywhere we want. Takes a little bit of power to get it to turn. You know, there's a little more rolling resistance, so you kind of got to throttle up as you're trying to get it to come through a turn. What we're looking for is a parking spot. So these white lines here, these T's, what we're going to do is we're going to cross the solid line, the line that'll be perpendicular to us once I finish this turn, and put the nose wheel on that center line that's pointing away from us. And I missed the turn a little bit. That was sloppy. Comes with practice. A little more. And let's straighten it out. Alright, let's stop right here. Throttle all the way back. Now we're just going to do a quick and easy shutdown, just like we didn't bother to start the engine, but we are going to go ahead and turn it off. You just grab with your mouse, pull that back, and shut that up by clicking on it. And we can turn up, shut up, I said. And we can turn off the battery. I think that'll take off most of that noise. There we go. That takes off all the power. And we open our canopy by pulling this lever back. And I think you click on this handle. There we go. And there we are. First flight completed. Thanks for riding along. And next lesson, maybe we'll go through an actual start and dig in a little bit deeper on some of the systems and such. See ya.